Welcome to teleSUR English. We go now to images from Russia as the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro is visiting and honoring the martyrs in the Second World War. We're looking at images at this moment from St. Petersburg as Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro continues its work agenda in Russia in the framework of his participation in the Victory Day, the 80th anniversary of Soviet victory against the Nazi regime that happened in 1945. We've seen world leaders from across the continent come to Russia to take part on the celebrations that had its main point at the Victory Parade on May 9th. Now the world leaders, including Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, continue their agenda, and in this case, he is paying tribute to those who have fallen at the Second World War from the Soviet army fighting against the Nazi regime, a war that came to put an end to Second World War. That was the commemoration that took part. World leaders from across the world came to take part in that commemoration of the historic event, 80 years from the victory of the Red Army over the Nazi regime. We are seeing images as the president visited the cemetery in St. Petersburg, honoring those victims of the fallen soldiers. Let's recall that a lot of the agenda has had to do with putting in the forefront the discussion over the historical relevance regarding a day that changed the history of Europe, Asia, and the world in terms of putting an end to fascism, putting an end to the Nazi regime at that time, and also in a world context in which international solidarity plays a key role in a new international fight against fascism, with far-right groups rising at different points of the world, but also solidarity movements and international cooperation striving to put an end and also a stop to these movements across the world. We're looking at images, as we were saying, of President Nicolás Maduro from Venezuela, currently on official visits in Russia. Yesterday, he took part in the main event of the celebration, that was the Victory Parade in Moscow, as he took part together with other world leaders. We've seen the arrival of leaders from all the continents to Russia, Latin American heads of state, not only the Venezuelan leader, but also from Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, from Brazil, Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, also from Asia. Chinese President Xi Jinping was one of the key appearances at this event, and also showing the support and the international strength of this coalition that strives to put an end, a stop to fascism as it did in 1945. We'll listen to the images from St. Petersburg. We recall that we were looking at images from Venezuelan president paying tribute at this moment to the martyrs of the Great Patriotic War, the war that the Soviet army fought against the Nazi regime during the Second World War, and that also put an end to that world conflict and also helped shape the world as it came to be afterwards. We're looking at images from the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro as he participates in this honoring of those victims. The whole week has been a celebration and also a commemoration of the lives of those who died at that moment and gave their lives for such an important historical event. One of the aspects that was underscored by the people, also by world leaders, had to do with the unity of the Soviet people at the then Soviet Union, that participated not only the Russian people, but also from the different nations that made up the Soviet Union at that time, that fought hand in hand all together as part of that Red Army that finally had a victory over Nazism. So we're looking at that tribute at the moment with the laying of wreath at the cemetery. We were looking at these images that are from Russia as the official agenda continues in this participation. In this case, in St. Petersburg, we've been seeing the world leaders at Moscow yesterday at the main event, and in this case, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, accompanied by First Commander Silvia Flores, are now in St. Petersburg, former Leningrad, honoring those victims as part of the world commemorations. We continue to see the images of this moment from Russia. Let's recall that one of the most important aspects of this commemoration have to do with showing the international relevance of a historical event and also combating Western narratives that have tried to push aside the mere existence of May 9th, Russia's Victory Day, as a day that changed the course and put an end to World War II. After that moment, we've been covering it here in teleSUR English. After that moment, Western narratives have tried to impose a narrative of that historical event that underplayed the role of the Soviet Union in that victory that changed the course of the rise of fascism across Europe. The participation of world leaders, as we are seeing the president of Venezuela take part in this official agenda of different activities of commemoration of those victims and the soldiers who took part in those battles. These international leaders are here to take part in a narrative supporting and speaking in front of the world, giving their support to this version that really states the role that the Soviet Union and the Soviet army, the Soviet people played in this. Let's listen.
Dejo este mensaje de admiración al pueblo héroe que resistió y derrotó a los nazis de ayer.
Я выражаю восхищение народом, который смог сопротивляться и нанести поражение фашистам и нацистам дня вчерашнего.
Demostrando que un pueblo que ama su patria es invencible.
So the people that love their nation is unbeatable. And so Commander Hugo Chavez said so. For the everlasting example that led to this great victory. Today, Russia and Venezuela are together and we are unbeatable. Long live the victory of the Great Patriotic War, Nicolás Maduro Moros, President of Venezuela.
We're looking at this moment, the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro participating in this act of honor to the victims of the Great Patriotic War, and also his support and respect, in this case, to the Russian Federation. We were listening to his also mention of Commander Chavez and his everlasting friendship with the Russian Federation, one of the highlights that many of the leaders have pointed to. And at this moment, what the President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, was highlighting was the salute from the people of Venezuela to the Russian people at this important moment. Also the importance of that strategic collaboration.
That emanates in this memorial. Mostly in this time in which humanity won over the fascism. And so we defend the right to peace. And example of this of what the Soviet people did to liberate humanity. Everlasting glory for martyrs and heroes.
This is the picture that we are looking at.
So we lost one out of two from 1811 to 1926. And Bolívar liberated the whole South America. What is Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Peru, and Bolívar founded that. The people of Venezuela is a heroic people. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We were looking at these images from the participation of the President of Venezuela, honoring the victims of the Great Patriotic War in St. Petersburg, also expressing his words of admiration and of support to the Russian people. We continue bringing you all the information in this coverage of the 80th anniversary of the win of the Soviet Army upon the Nazi regime. We will continue bringing you more information. Stay tuned with teleSUR English.